Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just gonna give a closing address to wrap the day up. But before I carry on, I just have a quick announcement, although Debbie has covered it briefly. There's those quick session questionnaires that we had for in-person as well as virtual attendees. In the event that you are not able to actually complete that, these can be emailed to you. I know not everyone was able to use the QR code method. This can be emailed to you. And the deadline for that could be the 1st of November, giving you ample time to complete those quick surveys. Obviously, we would prefer them sooner rather than later. In addition to that, Debbie did point out that there's a far more detailed survey for the event. This is really to actually help us improve upon future events, to also find out what we did correctly, what we probably went wrong or could improve upon, and how to assess a lot of things. It's very good for data collection purposes. We would really love to actually have your input. Once again, deadline there would be the 1st of November is actually, it's basically next week, Friday. But obviously, the sooner you do it, the better, because you might actually forget some things. But we understand that you're busy with your time, so we thought that it would be best to at least get people to the end of next week, Friday. So what I'm going to do is just cover a few behind the scenes information and then a broad overview of what we went through today before finally thanking several individuals who helped put this thing together. Most of you would have probably seen the how this event unfolded. It was put together. We put out a save the date notification, and then over time, what emerged was a program, and it covered these themes that you would have actually witnessed today: research intelligence, research identifiers. That was the ORCID presentation. Scholar integrity. That was presented by Vaynard van der Voort. There was the research data management one, the artificial intelligence panel discussion, as well as the transformative agreements presentation. In terms of the actual registration, what happened is we actually tried to track the number of people who are signing up for this event. And we use a tool called Bitly. This actually allowed us to track the effectiveness. This is just an example. And we actually had to pivot our marketing strategy. And in the last 2 weeks, our numbers actually skyrocketed. And this is one of the reasons why we'd actually like to actually get that kind of feedback from you to actually see if the marketing was actually effective or not. So how many people actually registered to attend? And this is registrations, not necessarily attendees. This data was pulled yesterday at the close of business. There were about 104 people who had actually registered as of 5 p.m. yesterday. You can look at a breakdown of that information, and the largest number of attendees, registrations were for the panel discussion, and the numbers tend to taper downwards as you carry on throughout the rest of the day. You can also look at the in-person as well as the online attendees. The high ones were also for the panel discussion. What was quite interesting is that for each and every single session, there were more online registrations than in-person registrations. I thought that was quite interesting to note. Could further break that down by looking at it in terms of the proportions. So the proportional breakdown revealed that the panel discussion accounted for at least 20%, and followed by RDM and scholar integrity. These three combined accounted for about 48% of the registrations. Now, I will note that we actually had more people who came and attended today compared to those who had actually signed up yesterday. So the number of registrations will probably be lower than the number of attendees. Then just to show you about a few photos about the setup, this is what the before and after, what the venue looked like. Obviously not extremely before, but as it was being set up, you can see the ladder all over the place, moving around. And then you have people on it. There's Castro and Alistair busy setting up the venue. They put in a lot of work to make sure that this venue was set up. And started working from the front, going backwards, all the way up until the back, just to make sure that everything was actually in place for this event. And then for today's program, I just want to run through that quickly. when she did the welcome address in the DVC, she basically gave an outline of what we hear today. There's a keynote address by the DVC outlining the university's research vision. That's what we actually slot into place. And everything else that you actually heard has a place within that vision. There was a panel discussion about artificial intelligence, gave us a bit of a breakdown, or at least a good understanding of how these researchers are applying artificial intelligence. We obviously had people who are experts in AI in terms of the computer science and mathematics academics, but we also had a glance in terms of how research support makes use of AI from NeoCron, as well as the library's take on how it can actually provide support to researchers by relying on AI. Then there was a presentation by Vayner on scholar integrity, and he warned people against predatory practices, as well as making sure that they make use of resources such as Retract Watch to make sure that the research outputs that they produce actually meet certain scholar integrity criteria. This was followed by the presentation that I delivered, and I just went through a couple of RDM concepts and then focused on how you can view the implementation of research data management at the university through the lens of a framework, and I gave examples of what we've done so far with the research data repository. Then there was a scrumptious lunch, which was then followed up by the ORCID presentation by Katu delivered the ORCID presentation, which showcased how you can actually create researcher identifiers to increase your visibility as a researcher and indirectly the visibility of your research outputs. This was followed by the transformative agreement presentation by Debbie, along with Zine, as well as Ms. Mantola. And this basically showcased how SANLIC works along with the library as well as the research office in order to facilitate the payment of APCs, as well as allowing people to capitalize on these transformative agreements to actually get discounts on these APCs and actually save a lot of money. And then finally, we just had the research intelligence presentation, which was quite interesting in terms of the stats that Melissa actually just showed us. There's a lot that can actually be generated by that. The library does already use this information, and I hope that a lot of you learned how you can possibly make use of this tool on an individual basis to actually generate data for yourselves. We do it at an institutional level and at a faculty-based level, but it's more useful at the individual researcher level if you can pull your own data as well. And now for just a quick word of thanks. We'd like to thank firstly the event sponsor for this occasion. That would be the DVC RISP. She basically funded this event, and it wouldn't have happened without her support, as well as the assistance from her project officer, Ms. Sharmla Gangaya. I hope I pronounced it correctly. And then we'd like to thank Ms. Namoitu Dunster for delivering the welcome address. I know you're a very busy person, but you set aside the whole day just to be here with us. Thank you so much. And then for the keynote speaker, she's not here right now. I'd like to thank her in absentia, Dr. Nomakwezim Sidakazi. I'd like to thank all the panelists. They already thanked the giving gifts as well, but I have to thank them a second time because we're doubly grateful. We had Prof. Dane Brown, Dr. Marceline Atemkeng, Mr. Neil Crum. I'll skip myself. And for the moderation, we had Mr. Vayner van der Voort. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank all of the speakers who participated in this occasion. Mr. Vayner van der Voort once again. I'll skip myself. There was Ms. Katu Paziri. We had Ms. Sine Sapula. We had Ms. Debbie Martindale, Ms. Tumeka Mantolo, as well as Ms. Melissa Badenhorst. And these are the members of the actual organizing committee, as well as their roles within the committee. There was Mr. Anela Mabona. I chaired the committee. There was Ms. Debbie Martindale, Mr. Gareth Dampis, Ms. Katu Paziri, Mr. Vuyo Intamo. This event would have not been possible without the absolute dedication, commitment, and hard work of these individuals. And I'm not just saying that because I was on the committee, but because we actually pull our weight and our resources. And over the past couple of months or weeks, I think we started around late July just to pull this event. It got delayed a bit, but that's because we were working on the availability of the DVC, but ultimately things worked out, and I hope that it's been a success even from your side. I'd also like to thank the extended implementation team for the venue setup. Gareth, Alistair, and Castro, thank you so much for setting up the venue. I'd like to thank Debbie for being the program director for the day, the timekeepers, Gareth again, and Lucky, as well as for the roving mics. The photography, Vuyo, thank you so much. I'd like to thank all the facilitators, Ayanda, Kenny, Katu, Cindy, Tandiwe, technical support team, Mr. Gareth, Alistair, as well as Castro, thank you so much. I don't have any gifts that I'm going to give you. You'll just hear me saying thank you. And then special thanks to people who are not part of the organizing committee, as well as the extended implementation team. They definitely had to be noted. Ms. Linda Boyd, she basically was responsible for making sure that we received the money from the DVC. And Ms. Sipe Rebecca is the one who actually actioned this and made and actually, that's the one who actually, I think, facilitated the transfer. Yeah, let's just put it that way. That's the one who sent the money. Rose Catering, they brought the food, have to thank them. Miss Andrea Leslie, she basically, she procured the food and actually made sure that everything was actually set up here earlier on today. Ms. Surianda, she actually assisted with the marketing, even though she was not on the committee. So everything that you saw on the mailing list, that for the most part came from Surianda. We also like to thank the student assistants, Ms. Patuma Balitulo. I think Mr. Charles Mbedzi was on standby, but he availed himself nevertheless. But there was also Mr. Tati Nklale. Those are the library assistants who were actually working at the registration desk. So they devoted half their days to actually be here, at least half the working day, so to speak. Ms. Lindiwe Helesi, who is responsible for who's part of the Rose University cleaning staff, made sure that this venue was actually spick and span and cleaned up in preparation for this event. And finally, once again, we'd like to thank the library director, Ms. Namortu Danster. She had yes, we're doubly grateful. She had the vision at the beginning of the year saying, we really need to actually have this event. So when I came to the university, she said, we should have an event like this. And there was a time it looked like it might not work. They said, we really need to have this event. She really wanted this to happen so that people can know that the library is there to actually deliver a certain service, and we want it to be visible. But what I saw today is that we also brought a community of researchers here who were able to learn a number of things that they weren't aware of. I saw in the morning people learned some things from what Neil Crime is actually doing from his research perspective. And that's the kind of community that building that we would actually like to foster and facilitate at the university. And then finally, without attendees, an event is actually nothing. I would actually like to thank all of you attendees for actually being here today, whether you attended in person or virtually. It would have really been a terrible event if there was no one, and we're really, really grateful that you actually came and supported this event. But more importantly, I hope that you'll go away with something new that you actually learned that will be of tremendous value to your lives and your research productivity going forward. Thank you very much. Yes, one more thing. Please don't forget to complete the surveys.